It's almost 50 years since Sir Robin Knox-Johnston completed his pioneering non-stop solo circumnavigation of the world.
Day 312, about 25 past 3 on April the 22nd, and Robin Knox-Johnston and Sue Haley have sailed non-stop around the world.
Nearly 3 decades later, the Clipper race was born. Sir Robin's concept was clear: sailing the world's toughest oceans in a circumnavigation around the planet. But not for an elite few. These would be everyday people with a thirst for adventure.
You know, life is for that, to take risks, to follow your dreams.
Now in the 11th edition of the biennial race, 700 participants from all walks of life, representing over 40 nationalities, will take on the challenge of dealing with whatever Mother Nature has in store. Battling the elements out on the world's greatest oceans, they will experience some of the toughest conditions imaginable. From hurricane-force winds to squalls that can knock a boat flat. From stifling heat to sub-zero conditions and the danger of possible injury.
If you could imagine taking a cheese wire and almost cutting down that line.
They must learn to live with strangers, sailing 24 hours a day for weeks on end, all within the confines of a 70-foot yacht in the middle of the ocean. 40,000 miles, 13 races, 12 identical yachts, 6 continents, 1 unique challenge. This is the race of their lives. Coming up, it's the US coast-to-coast leg, where crews take on the Pacific from Seattle down to Panama. The fleet transits through one of the modern wonders of the world, the Panama Canal. And finally, a testing shorter race through the Caribbean up to the Big Apple, as the teams converge on New York. The Clipper Race is a global series of 13 races between 6 continents over 11 months. Starting in England, the first race is a downward roller coaster to Punta del Este, Uruguay. Race 2 takes on the South Atlantic to South Africa, and then it's the infamous Southern Ocean sleigh ride. The Australia leg is split into 3 from Fremantle, including the iconic Sydney-Hobart race, ending in Airlie Beach, before heading to the city of Sanya in China for the first time. Then it's north to a wintry Qingdao, before crossing the mighty Pacific Ocean to Seattle. The US coast-to-coast leg is 2 races via the Panama Canal up to New York. The final race leg sees the fleet cross the Atlantic Ocean to Northern Ireland, before race 13 and the sprint to the finish back in Liverpool. For the circumnavigators, it's been a tough 8 months of racing. Having started from Liverpool in England, they have sailed to Uruguay, then crossed the South Atlantic Ocean to Cape Town, before one of the toughest crossings of the infamous Southern Ocean in the 20-year history of the race. Next was an all-Australian adventure that included the Blue Ribbon Sydney-Hobart race, before a long race north through the tropics to China, where temperatures rapidly changed to winter. Now they are in Seattle, USA, after surviving the mighty North Pacific, crossing through gigantic swells and hurricane-force winds, described as phenomenal conditions. Now in Seattle, the teams have time to relax and rest after their epic race to the Emerald City, enjoying the sights and sounds and the warmth of a Seattle welcome. So time for some fun, as some of the crew decide to take the weight off their feet, literally, and have a taste of skydiving.
So what we have here is a recirculating wind tunnel, right? And what this does is it takes the body flight portion of skydiving and puts it kind of under a microscope. So what we do is we get into the tunnel and we're laying on a cushion of wind that supports us, and then we teach you how to make really small movements to help you move around in the tunnel. It's pretty awesome.
But it looks pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it. I've no idea. I think it'd be very strange, but yeah, I think it'd be good.
Guys, earbuds, combination lock.
They did really, really well. They were just talking about that on the ship, that they have to be able to listen to each other. And I was just saying it's more enjoyable when you take people in when they're very good at listening, so they're really receptive to hand signals.
It's like somebody putting a big hairdryer in your face, but also feeling weightless and floating.
It was fantastic. It was really good fun. I was a little bit nervous, but as soon as you get in there, you just relax.
It makes you feel like you can fly. So much fun. And then the second time when we went up, that's a great rush. I loved it.
Back at the marina, the crews in the Clipper Race maintenance team have a never-ending list of work that needs completing to keep these high-power racing yachts in top shape. Some have suffered damage in the incredible seas the fleet endured in the Pacific. Safety of all is the prime consideration, and everyone came through, having relied on their training, their fellow crew, and the experience of their skippers. But the conditions were relentless, and repairs are needed. There's also a new environmental monitoring device to be fitted to the Visit Seattle yacht, which is to undertake scientific ocean sampling research.
We're all gathered to install a pH sensor to test the acidity of the water on the leg of this tour down the Pacific and up the Atlantic. Part of the challenge of climate change is that the ocean has been absorbing a lot of carbon dioxide, and that creates a carbonic acid, which makes it difficult for small shelled organisms to form their shells. And this affects the food for the salmon, which in turn feeds the killer whales, and our killer whales and our salmon are both endangered species. This particular leg of the trip is one area that has been poorly sampled. This will fill a gap in the understanding of how the ocean acidifies around the continent. So it's really quite a contribution and a very valuable way in which such a special race can also contribute to such an important and pressing study.
And there are many other activities that the Clipper race crews helped with too, including a visit to a local school as part of the UNICEF program.
Today we have crew members from the Clipper race around the world.
Well, we're doing a school visit today. The children here have been supporting UNICEF. There's a program being rolled out which is absolutely fantastic, engaging the children in the poverty around the world and how they can have an impact and help. I've been geared up in all the foul weather gear and give a visual idea to the children what we dress and how we sail the boat, and an opportunity to let them show us what they do. And it's a really great interactive day. The crew thoroughly enjoyed it. The children, as always, asked some very searching questions, and they've learned all about UNICEF and what UNICEF does around the world, so it's great.
The next race will take the teams down the west coast of North America, with both a scoring gate and an ocean sprint, where bonus points can be won by the teams. It's a 4,100 nautical mile race to Panama. As crews arrive early after a long and enjoyable stopover in Seattle, all of the teams are ready to go, except one. Repairs to the PSP Logistics yacht have taken longer than anticipated at the local boatyard. And so it only arrives a few hours prior to the planned departure. Now the crew have to pack a month's supplies and stow all their kit aboard, a job usually requiring 2 days.
Well, the boat's been in the yard, and I think they must have encountered some problems or something with the fix, because, well, it's race leaving day and we've only just got the boat back, so, yeah, it's all a bit chaotic at the moment. The maintenance team doing a great job refitting the helm cage that's been repaired. The steering system has got to be rebuilt. All the electronics for the instruments have got to be run back through.
So as you can see, we've got all our provisions, all our stores, which we had to store away from here. We've had to bring it all down here, and we're now trying to pack it. There's a lot of stuff. We've got over 20 people on board. We've basically got around 53 days' food, I think, is actually being packed on board as provisions, because we can only get fresh food in Panama.
Right, I don't know where they're going to go.
So the start of the parade begins with the teams walking one by one to their yachts as they head out to leave Seattle. Departure days are always brimming over with emotions, as crew are sad to leave loved ones and head to the open ocean, but excited at the prospect of what lies ahead. Over 100 new crew have joined the established circumnavigators for this leg of the race to New York. sail along the Seattle seafront draws large crowds out to watch this spectacular sight. And a special import races stage for spectators to enjoy and to give new crew an opportunity to refresh their sailing skills. Fittingly, the race is won by the home port team Visit Seattle, to the delight of all. After an overnight of motoring to clear water off the coast, a Le Mans-style race start is planned.
Right now we're in the preparation stages for Le Mans starts for the race down to Panama. All of the boats line up with only their mainsails up, maintaining a course and speed, ready for the countdown sequence. And then once the countdown sequence starts at 10 minutes, we then go to 4 minutes, then 1 minute, and then go. All the crew have had to be aft in the cockpit, and once the go gun goes, they can all go forwards into some pre-allocated positions, hoisting both head sails at the same time, with the idea being that the boat that has their sails up and set quickest will start pulling away from the rest of the fleet.
Coming up, the race is underway, and we meet a nurse who has put her career on hold to circumnavigate the world. The wildlife at sea continues to amaze the crew as temperatures rise. It proves particularly tough for one crew member as he continues his round-the-world race. And there's frustration that tests one crew's resolve as they race for the lead, heading ever further south. Clipper Round the World Yacht Race is a 40,000-mile adventure for amateur sailors. Next up is Race 10, and the 11 teams spent the first night motoring from Seattle out into the Pacific Ocean to reach the start line of the Garmin American Challenge, which will see them run down the length of North America to Panama. By day 3, they are off the coast of California. The winds have turned lighter and the swells have increased. PSP Logistics are up in the leading group of 4 yachts and racing well under spinnaker, where they look comfortably placed. The crew have stowed their food supplies into every available space. A novice sailor has taken on the victualling role for the team, planning meals and nutrition, having decided to join the race that left England 8 months earlier.
I had looked into the race about 5 or 6 years before actually signing up, but didn't think anything of it. And then working in London, I was exposed to the posters on the tubes every day on the way to work. And one day just decided to find out a little bit more about it. And the next thing I knew, I'd signed up for the entire race. Physically, it's definitely pushed me to my limits. You know, just sort of the daily, just the watch system more than anything, you know, being up and down every 4 hours, as well as doing all the physical sides up on deck, but also down below, which is sometimes more challenging than actually sailing the boat. And mentally, it's been a huge, huge test, I think, for all of us. I mean, you know, the highs are fantastic, but the lows are pretty low, and it's learning to deal with that and using your team around you really to get through it and knowing it's not going to last forever. We've had a few races where maybe we should have been better placed than we ended up being, but we've also had a lot of success with the number of podiums we've had, and that's obviously been a massive highlight, you know, reflects the amount of work that we've put into the race. I ended up as medic because of my career. I'm a nurse by background, and we don't have that many medically qualified people within our crew, and I was the only round-the-worlder, so I was asked to take on that role, and a little bit more recently I've taken over the victualling role as well, mainly because our victualler who's meant to be doing it had to drop out due to medical reasons. The victualling role is incredibly challenging, quite stressful, particularly as the first experience I had of mass food shopping was in China, and all the challenges that go along with that. So it's been a challenge. So as a crew member, I've ended up doing a lot of the bow work. So I'm up here doing sail changes, when we're doing jives, rerunning sheets. That's sort of been my ended up being my main role from a sailing perspective, and I'm really proud of that because it is seen quite as one of those roles where you have the tall, strong men pulling the sails around, and I'm doing that. So that's been a big achievement for me to take on that and to tell the men how to do the job.
Teamwork is essential when raising and dropping sails, as everything is done manually. In training, the crews practice this, and each person finds the area on the yacht they are most comfortable working with. Some prefer grinding the halyards, which requires strength and stamina, while others might prefer the role of trimming the sails, though all of the positions are rotated, with everyone given the chance to become familiar across all roles on the yacht. Sailing downwind or off the wind is usually the fastest point of sail with the massive spinnakers, but getting the most from these somewhat delicate sails takes practice.
The spinnakers we have on board are made of more fragile material. We got 3 types of spinnakers, which is most suitable for the downwind sailing, and they are rated for different wind ranges, both in strength and angles of the bow. And they are important for us because we are sailing a route around the world that predominantly is a downwind race. The spinnaker is sort of a big balloon which catches the wind instead of getting wind through them as whitesail does. And they are flown by a bowsprit, and they are attached up the head of the mast. A spinnaker is always the most efficient on the verge of collapse. That means that the range of your maneuvering is way narrower, but the boat will go faster as long as you keep it inside that small range of course. It has its advantages and disadvantages. It's a lot more fun to drive spinnaker because you go way faster, first of all, and you're always challenged by the elements. But when it's too heavy and it's too much to carry, it's always good to change down to a white sail and play it safe, because mistakes happen in a big breeze.
And it does go wrong for the team, as perhaps pushing too hard, having taken the lead in the race, a simple mistake sees their Code 2 spinnaker stuck fast around a shroud up high on the yacht. A disaster for the team. Skipper Matt is quickly on deck assessing the situation and trying to guide the recovery process, but it looks severe.
We were sailing in pretty moderate conditions, really, and cycling through some of our new joiners on the helm. A couple of little slightly larger waves rolled through the boat, did quite a lot of lurching around, so the watch leader stepped in just to try and get it back under control. But unfortunately it was on its way down a wave, and the bow of the boat was headed too deep, meaning that the kite collapsed behind the mainsail, drawing it closer towards the forestays. As the kite refilled, it was twisted around the inner forestay and continued to get progressively worse. So initially, Stian, one of my round-the-worlders, he's our resident mast monkey. He went up. He's really experienced up there. He knows exactly what he's doing.
You want to eat too, Stian?
The conditions at the time meant that it was too rolly for him really to do anything meaningful about it. So he made a bit of progress, but we had to get him down.
Slip in.
Losing this sail could seriously affect their competitiveness in the race, but safety must come first. Overnight, the sea state eases a little, and the crew are keen to try and recover the now wrecked sail.
We were well in the lead when it happened. You know, we chose an early jibe, which really paid off, actually. We were 10, 15 miles in the lead, and we would have continued to pull away by all accounts. That initial period of not having anything hanging off the front of the boat to pull us along, that impacted us, but you know, PSP are pretty good at the old comeback, so we're back up where we need to be now.
But the slowdown in speed has allowed a tiny passenger to join the crew, have a rest this far offshore, and make some friends along the way.
Yeah, let's go for your nets. Yeah, he's having your nets now.
Now 2 days since they wrapped the sail around the rigging, the crew are still trying to cut the spinnaker down, such is the severity of the tangle. It's in pieces now, and this valuable sail looks beyond repair, which means the team will be penalised points from their overall score for the damage. Finally, the spinnaker is cleared, and they can hoist a replacement to get back up to full racing speed. The wind fills on day 5 of the race as the teams enter the Elliott Brown Ocean Sprint off the Mexican coast. The fastest teams to cross the 2 lines of latitude can earn bonus points. Chinese entry Qingdao is leading the race with a small margin over Dare to Lead and Visit Seattle, with PSP Logistics battling for 4th place. Leaving Seattle was difficult for an American circumnavigator on the team, as it's his hometown. He sailed for many years and had the dream of sailing around the world ever since he was a child. But his work and raising a family were the priority.
In my late 40s, I revived the dream, set out a 5-year plan to take sailing lessons for blue water sailing, and started saving money to buy a boat. Unfortunately, halfway through that, my wife developed cancer and passed away. And so I was afraid that maybe my dream died with her. But then I came across Clipper at the Seattle Boat Show 2 years ago. And I realized that this was a possibility of achieving that goal, and I could do it in a fairly expeditious manner. These boats are fast. It happens in about a year. And so here I am, 9 months later, since leaving Liverpool. And yeah, looking forward to doing it, finishing. I think being separated from family and loved ones has proven to be the biggest challenge for me. Being gone for a year out of your life is very, very hard. I anticipated it, but not to the extreme that I'm experiencing it. So, yeah, I'm homesick. Seattle's my home, and it was great. 2 or 3 weeks ago when we sailed in, I had a wonderful, heartwarming reunion with my family. Got to meet my grandson, who was born on December 5th while I was off the coast of Australia. Very exciting moment for our family. Yeah, I loved it. The highlights for me on the Clipper race are the scenery. The sunsets in the equator are like none I've ever seen anywhere. It's not just the western horizon that lights up orange when the sun goes down. It's 360 all the way around you. All the clouds go orange. It's very vibrant. It's very alive. It's amazing. It's just a year of doing some remarkable things and seeing things that you just normally wouldn't see. And the Panama Canal is one of the highlights of that list. I'm pretty excited about it.
Coming up, the crew of PSP Logistics start an ambitious repair to their shredded sail, working around the clock to try and achieve a miracle. Conditions aboard become almost unbearable in the heat below decks. The teams have the entrance to the Panama Canal in sight, but on the way, one crew experiences an incredible wildlife encounter. The 11 teams taking part in the Clipper race left Seattle on the west coast of the USA and are racing to Panama, 4,100 nautical miles away. Aboard the PSP Logistics yacht, the crew suffered what's known as a kite-mare, destroying one of their precious spinnakers, a fate that befell a few other teams on the same day in the large swells. Sailing downwind like this has been exhilarating, despite the issues they've encountered. Unfortunately for the PSP Logistics crew, a mistake on deck in the darkness overnight sees them suffer yet more damage to their precious sails. This time, the Code 1 spinnaker is the victim when they were back up to speed and pushing to regain places. Now the crew must consider their options as they assess the damage in the saloon below decks. The sail repairers are used to fixing rips and tears, but are clearly daunted by the scale of this task.
So we're currently repairing our Code 1 spinnaker, which was for overnight. about midnight last night, fell in the water. It's currently all over the boat. It's torn from the head right down to the tack. This is actually the third time I think we've repaired this sail, but the first time we've done it at sea. So we're just making a start on trying to stick it back together before we have to sew it with our sewing machine. We're just about to enter the ocean sprint, so it's not ideal. This is the sail that we probably would be using, so it's important that we work around the clock to get it back up flying as soon as possible.
With the race progressing, Matt decides the team must become more tactical given their impaired situation, and heads closer to the shore where he feels the current and wind will be in their favour. Quite a gamble. They hide the move from their competitors and on the race viewer by entering stealth mode for 24 hours. With the fleet spreading out and extending, most are now out of sight of each other as the days roll by. The crews sleep, eat and sail in never-ending watch changes through a rolling 24-hour cycle. Each team is totally focused on the best sail choice and fastest angles, as life elsewhere in the world goes on as usual. To lighten the mood, the Great Britain team have a bit of fun, marking the royal wedding taking place back home, thousands of miles and many time zones away, with a tiny slice of British humour. On Sanya's Serenity Coast, which is vying for the lead, the local wildlife seems to be taking an interest in their race, and perhaps looking for a swift passage to Panama in good company and the best seat in the house. While the Dare to Lead team have one of the most remarkable encounters ever seen on the Clipper race, which begins with a pod of dolphins playing alongside the yacht. And then there's a somewhat larger and even more curious visitor who comes to play. As they head further south, the mercury continues to rise. Foul weather gear has slowly been replaced by shorts and t-shirts, and the heating below decks has long been switched off. Temperatures are in the high 30 degrees Celsius as the race heads into an area of light wind that slows everyone down.
The heat is oppressive. You cannot get away from it. There's no sanctuary. It's 100 degrees Fahrenheit below decks. It's 100 degrees above decks and 90% humidity. I don't think you get used to it, but you just tolerate it. You really have no options. One of the highlights of the trip of race 10 is the icy pops. It's the one little thing we have against the heat. We have a freezer, and in the freezer we keep it stocked 20 or 30 of the things, so we get like one a day, two a day. And it's wonderful to have something cold in your mouth. It's a treat.
Working away down below in the searing heat, the sail repair team has been working hard on the Code 1 spinnaker that was damaged and has come up with a bit of a surprise.
It's Matt's birthday tomorrow. We've been working on the Code 1 for 72 hours now, trying to fix it after a bit of a kite explosion. He's desperate to get this sail up on deck, desperate to get it hoisted because it's the sail we need more than any other at the moment. So we thought it'd be quite sweet to put on Happy Birthday Matt to celebrate, hopefully, the conclusion of this rather mammoth sail affair.
Next day, the crew have also managed to bake their skipper a cake.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Matt. Happy birthday to you.
Very nice. Well done.
Shortly after, the crew are back on deck, and ready to hoist the now repaired spinnaker after 3 days of seriously hard grit and determination. Now they can get back into the race at full speed.
It's fantastic having the Code 1 back up. Yeah, the guys did a fantastic job. It made me laugh out loud. It was a very nice surprise to have, definitely.
The teams are progressing well, but very light wind is forecast ahead of them, and the race director is considering which of the finish lines to use to keep their tight schedule into Panama. This puts added pressure on the crews, as the decision could mean a change in tactics and routing. So the Qingdao, Visit Seattle and Liverpool 2018 crews opt to head for the scoring gate, securing 3, 2 and 1 bonus points respectively as they push on to extend their lead. The crew of PSP Logistics have become more competitive as the overall race has evolved, steadily climbing the race leaderboard. The only Norwegian circumnavigator taking part is relishing it.
I had a lifelong dream ever since I was 12 years old about sailing around the world. And all of a sudden I just came over Clipper Race online and just thought that would be the perfect thing for me to do. So I signed up and here I am, over halfway around the world. I started as a baby, really, with my mother and father and my family as well. We had a cruiser for many years, and I've also been doing a lot of racing with my own 25-footer, and the last seasons I've been involved in a racing team back home in Norway. I'll get to see the world in a very special perspective, and I get to see the world's oceans, and that's what appeals me most, to sail where very few people have been before me. The strange thing is that when you're out there, you feel the sense of liberty and freedom in a very special way. You also feel that you're on your own little world, on board with your teammates, and you're 100% dependent on them as well as they are on me. So it's quite a special feeling, but it's all good. It feels good. The fact that this journey is almost over, it's a shame because I love it so much and I never want it to end.
But this race to Panama is quickly coming to a close as the finish is called for mandatory Gate 2, with the wind forecast worsening. So it's going to be a thrilling contest to the line.
If we can hold what we're doing for another couple of hours, then we should be able to get 5th, having just come up from being in 9th this morning. The atmosphere on deck's pretty jovial, everyone's in good spirits. The crew have been really working the boat hard, so really trying to eke out every ounce of boat speed that we can.
Despite slipping down the rankings without their Code 2 spinnaker, the PSP Logistics crew remain upbeat.
Feeling pleased to have finished. As always, we would have liked a slightly better overall results, but we've had a good positive race, very, very different from leg 6, and we're looking forward to eventually getting to Panama.
With the positions finalised, PSP Logistics actually finishes in 7th place, and perhaps encouraged by their aquatic visitors, it's the Dare to Lead crew who stayed offshore and enjoyed better winds, coming through in 1st place, followed by Visit Seattle and the Great Britain team. The Liverpool 2018 crew need some help, as they've experienced an engine problem. And due to the race finishing early, all of the teams now face a week of motoring south, with a planned refuel in Costa Rica on the way. Then it's straight to Panama, where they will transit through one of the modern wonders of the world. Coming up, crews prepare themselves for the incredible opportunity to enter the Panama Canal, where their yachts are dwarfed by massive cargo ships and tankers. We meet a Dutch sailor sending home video stories for her many young supporters. And there's excitement as the race gears up for the short sprint to New York City, where the Big Apple welcomes them with open arms. The Clipper race teams have completed a spectacular 18-day race from Seattle, down the west coast of North America, having enjoyed some incredible wildlife encounters on the way in beautiful weather. Now they're in Flamenco Island Marina in Panama, a venue that nearly all the crew are visiting for the first time. The marina is on the Pacific side of the country, near to the capital city, and the crews welcome the chance to rest and recover here for a few days, enjoying this new experience. The Bridge of the Americas is a famous icon and marks the entrance to the Panama Canal, recognized as one of the modern engineering wonders of the world. The canal joins the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans and was constructed over 100 years ago so that ships no longer need to make the long and expensive journey down the length of South America and endure the infamous storms around Cape Horn. But it's not straightforward transiting through the canal, as ships of all shapes and sizes fill it every day, and there is a heavy schedule of traffic, which means the Clipper race management must agree a plan to send the yachts through over several days.
We've got 11 yachts are on the Pacific side at the moment in Flamenco Island Marina, and we need to get all 11 yachts through the canal. We tend to send boats through in groups of 3s. So we've got one group going on day 1, and then we'll have 3 on the next day, 3 on the next day, and the final 2 boats on day 4. And then head off for a Le Mans start and race up to New York.
The Panama Canal recently celebrated its centenary, an engineering triumph recognized throughout the world.
Well, basically, it's an aquatic elevator. We receive the vessels coming in from the ocean, and we raise them on each one of the chambers up to the levels of the artificial lakes. So altogether, you're going to rise up to 26 meters above sea level. Well, the Panama Canal is basically using the water from the rainfall. So you replenish the water with the rainfall to the rivers, from the rivers to the lakes, and from the lakes, you administrate the water from chamber to chamber, all solely gravity fed. When it's equalized on both chambers, as one is being raised and the other one's being dropped, then you open the gate to allow the vessels to move from one step to the other.
Right now we're in the third lock, so you can see the lock gates behind us are closing. Up ahead there'll be a system of pumps or sluice gates, depending how they work in it, which will allow the water from the next level to rise up. So we'll shortly start rising up at quite a quick rate. Once the water's up to the same level as the outside, the next set of gates will open, and that'll be us in the long canal section. I think it's another 21 miles until the next set of locks. Once we go through the next set of locks, that'll be us in the Atlantic. So we've gone from the Pacific to Atlantic in one day, which is pretty exciting.
Per ship, on each lockage, you're going to use about 100 million liters of water on one end and 100 million again on the other end. So altogether, every lockage will be about 200 million liters of water, which eventually all drains out to the ocean.
The first attempt to build the Panama Canal was by the French in 1881.
The most important thing at that time was the geographical position of Panama. It served the purpose as the narrowest part in the American continent. The French were involved in building the areas of the Suez Canal. Their ideal was to do it at sea level, like it is today there, but here, the mountain range made it very difficult. When the United States started building their canal, they also had an idea of doing it at sea level, thinking they had better equipment. Unfortunately, it didn't work that way. Once they were able to figure out, hey, what we have to do is accomplish the mountain range, they decided to, just dam the rivers and create artificial lakes. So the lock is the elevator that rises you up to the level of the lake and brings you back down to the level of the ocean. All the gates you're able to see here today are all original from that time period. Between 1909 and 1913, they were designed and built and assembled on its place. If you put on a flatbed all the amount of dirt and gravel that they took out of this particular area, you can go around the world 8 times. can imagine how much was used at that time.
The yachts transit successfully through the Panama Canal over a number of days and reach Shelter Bay on the Atlantic side of the country, where repairs continue for the PSP logistics crew. But all too quickly and in the early morning, it's time for the yachts to depart and head to sea again, ready for Race 11, the NASDAQ race to New York.
I think it's going to be a great race. It's not a very long one, but it looks as if we'll be starting with pretty good winds, so we'll be making nice speeds towards New York. Hopefully get there in under 2 weeks. And just the idea of sailing into New York is amazing. Must be an amazing skyline to see from the water. So yeah, I'm super excited about it.
The race will be another Le Mans-style start once the Clipper race fleet has motored clear of the shipping lanes. Then they will begin the race up through the Caribbean islands to a scoring gate, followed by the Elliott Brown Ocean Sprint and a finish off New York, all in around 11 to 13 days. So, having motored through the night to the start position, the teams once again take formation and prepare for the start. As the countdown ends, the crews are quickly into action, hoisting sails to get the race away. Almost immediately, Skipper Rob and the NASDAQ crew make a bold decision to tack away onto a different easterly heading. It's a courageous tactical move so early in the race.
As soon as the Le Mans start, 10 minutes was over, we both started. Race for 10 minutes in the formation. As soon as that 10 minutes was up and the lead boat gave the command, we tacked straight away and headed east. The rest of the fleet continued north. We broke off and headed east to get a better wind angle through the gate. So far, it's looking like it's going to pay off because we've got a great angle to get to the first gate, which has to be left to port. It looks like the rest of the boats are going to have a bit of a struggle against some adverse current getting further to the east later on. So I reckon we made a good decision. Time will tell, but I'm feeling confident about it at the moment.
So NASDAQ have chosen a lonely path to New York, but soon others follow their lead and tack away from the main pack, which remains close together. But will these tactics pay off given the weather forecast? Aboard NASDAQ, one of the round-the-world crew has developed a special following back home in Holland.
I'm involved with a school project called At Sea, and it was actually started 2 years ago at the previous Clipper race when another Dutch guy did the circumnavigation, and his sister is an elementary school teacher and thought, well, why not use this as a learning opportunity for children in the age 10 to 12? So she developed all these educational targets and exercises that link to the Dutch school curriculum that let the kids follow the race around the world and do assignments at the same time. These assignments can include things like marine biology, geography, history, even a little bit of social, economic, and politics. So this year they decided to expand the project, and I now have about 700 kids following me. So every leg they get a set of assignments to do that have to do with that particular leg. And I send them home messages and videos and photos. In Australia, I send them back postcards, all handwritten, it's been a long time since I'd written postcards, and writing like 50 of them was quite a bit of effort, but a lot of fun. I've done a Facebook Live session with them where they could ask me questions, which are really cool questions, like, do people bring teddy bears on board, or how does the trash situation work, or how do you sleep? And then I show them a little video of how the beds work and stuff like that, so it's really fun. I hope an adventure like this inspires kids to see that they can live their own dreams. I also hope it does get them a little bit more conscious of the world as a whole and the different places that are out there and how they're different cultures, and become more conscious about things like a plastic ocean and do things about that, and how we deal with our garbage and global warming and those type of important questions. So hopefully different kids get inspired in different ways. By day 5, the teams are making their way through the set gates and the Caribbean islands.
The crew of PSP Logistics are sailing well, establishing a healthy lead ahead of Great Britain and Sanya Serenity Coast. And it looks as though Nasdaq's gamble has paid off. The main pack needed to tack further upwind, and so the team have joined back together in 5th position, and the skipper is very satisfied.
We are now picking our way through the various mandatory gates on the course through the islands of the Bahamas. The race director has set a course that has a series of 3 mandatory gates in the south and 2 further north. We have to go through one of each of those sets, but exactly which is up to us. So it's quite a tactical decision. Nasdaq's gone for the centre of the southern gates, and at the moment we're on the way up to the western of the northern gates. We've chosen that course because it gives us the best angle to the wind, and we're keeping up some really good boat speed. Because it's a tactical decision which of these gates we go through, Nasdaq's chosen to go into stealth mode, so the other boats can't see how we're doing and where we're going. We're really happy with how the team's gone so far this leg. We're right up at the front of the pack, and we're pushing hard to keep our place there.
There's a solid breeze helping the team's race to New York, providing exciting conditions. As the days pass, it's time for Inika to record another story for the school children following back home.
Grind! So my favorite job on the boat is helming. It's such a great feeling to drive a 70-foot boat across an ocean. Great feeling of freedom, especially with lots of wind. It's very powerful. It's also nice with a sunny day like this. But it is a job where you really have to remain focused, to drive a straight line, to monitor if the wind's changing direction or speed, to make sure your speed's up to what we were planned to do or not, and then communicating that back to the trimmers, to watch leaders, and stuff like that. It's an amazing thing to do.
This short race is proving challenging for the crews as they rotate through the watch systems. And by the 8th day of racing, the leaders enter the Elliott Brown Ocean Sprint, where the fastest 3 teams will score bonus points. Nasdaq are racing well in the sprint corridor, maintaining a fast average speed, drawing ever closer to the finish line off New York, and they are confident.
We've just had an email from the race office telling us that we won the Ocean Sprint. We're very happy. We had an average speed of just under 12 knots, which is very good, and a good straight line across the course. We're now approaching the finish line, which is about 50 miles outside of New York. We've got just over 12 miles left to go. The wind's good, we're making steady progress, we've got the spinnaker up, and it's foggy, so we've got the radar on and we're watching for fishing boats.
Ahead of them, the first teams are finishing, and it's a well-deserved win for the PSP Logistics team, the first to reach this magnificent city. Like so many others before them, these sailors are welcomed by the iconic Statue of Liberty. The Clipper race docks at Liberty Landing, overlooking Lower Manhattan.
The decisions were good. We had a bit of luck, as always, in ocean racing, and the team worked fantastically hard. It was, it's all well and good putting the boat in the right place, but getting them to perform how you want them to perform as well is the main thing.
Later in the day, second to arrive into New York is Chinese entry Sanya Serenity Coast, securing 11 more race points. And taking 3rd place and 10 points is the Great Britain team. Meanwhile, Nasdaq crossed the finish line in 6th position, but are delighted with their 3 bonus points from winning the Elliott Brown Ocean Sprint.
I'm very happy, actually. Yeah. We came in 6th, which is not as great as we hoped. Some point we were in the running to become 3rd, and that would have been our first podium place, but it's been an amazing race. We really gave it everything. Our strategy of sticking a little bit further east didn't pan out in the end. That happens. And not to forget, an amazing ocean sprint, 3 points. We went super, super fast. worked hard, and it paid off. And the whole atmosphere on board has been so great. It's been awesome.
So with these points added, Sanya Serenity Coast maintains its overall lead. Another excellent race. While other teams have consolidated their positions with extra points, it remains close throughout, with just 2 more races left to go. After a few days of relaxing, the crews are refreshed and ready to party at the awards ceremony. 2 presentations for races 10 and 11, so plenty of podiums to enjoy. The race 10 winners from Seattle to Panama are awarded their pennants, a great achievement for all. And later it's the turn of the podium place teams into New York, Great Britain, Sanya Serenity Coast, and the winners, PSP Logistics, who celebrates their 4th podium of the Clipper race so far. Next time, it's the final leg of the Clipper Round the World Yacht Race as the teams leave New York behind and take on the last major ocean crossing, the Atlantic, and the final chance for the chasing pack to close the gap on leaders Sanya Serenity Coast. With a crew of Visit Seattle desperate for victory, there's the traditional warm Northern Irish welcome from Derry Londonderry, where a spectacular festival awaits. And then it's the closing push to Liverpool, England. After 11 months and 40,000 miles of sensational sailing, a sprint finish is set to keep tensions high to the very last moment and determine who will be victorious in the race of their lives.